Do you feel like you're always getting one-tapped by enemies before you even have a chance to react? It might not be your aim that's the problem, but your movement. Many people think aim is the only thing that matters in an attack shooter like Valorant. However, your movement is just as important as your aim when it comes to winning gunfights and clutching rounds. Just think about it. If you're an easy target due to predictable or slow movement, even the best aim in the world won't save you from getting insta-killed every time you peek around a corner. On the other hand, mastering unpredictable, evasive movement can help you win fights even against opponents with better aim. The difference between always being on the receiving end of one taps and being the one that's actually dishing them out often comes down to who has superior movement. If you're serious about taking your Valorant gameplay to the next level, it's time to start focusing on improving your movement skills. So in this video, I'm going to dive into the 3 key areas that you need to master in order to fix your movement. Now, quickly before the video, if you're currently below Radiant and are looking to move up to your dream rank, my team of Radiant coaches and I can help you with our 10-week premium coaching program that offers a 500 RR rank up guarantee or your money back. That's right. If you don't see results with our coaching, you don't pay. We have over a dozen Radiant coaches with VCT experience on teams like Ascend, Immortals, Disguised, Genji, Xset, and Giants. So to find out more and to see if we'd be a good fit, use the link in the description below to book a free strategy call with me or one of my coaches. Hurry, because only 18 spots are remaining for the next 10-week season. The first key to becoming harder to hit is mastering the art of micro movements. What are micro movements exactly? They're the tiny adjustments you make to your position while strafing or holding an angle. By constantly making these small shifts, you become a moving target that's much tougher for enemies to lock onto. Imagine you're holding an angle, waiting for an enemy to peek. If you just stand completely still, you're going to be a sitting duck on their screen. But if you micro strafe just a few steps in either direction, your opponent will have a split second of misalignment when they peek, which gives you a better chance to react and win the duel. Let's take a look at a clip of Loud Less playing Viper on Icebox. In a 1v3 situation, he's holding screens and manages to take out KJ as she swings into his crosshair. But what's really impressive is how he instantly micro adjusts his position right after firing. This isn't just about dodging return fire, it's a deliberate repositioning that takes advantage of the enemy's momentary aim reset. Even when he whiffs a few shots on the next opponent, his micro movements make him so hard to hit that he's able to secure the triple kill.
Sometimes he just like full confidence just swings you and kills you, and it's cool. Yeah, he's got the freedom to do it.
To start incorporating micro movements into your own gameplay, hop into deathmatch and consciously focus on making small adjustments during every engagement. After firing your first bullet, tap A or D to subtly reposition before firing again. You don't need to move far either. Even a quarter or half step can make a difference. The key is developing the muscle memory to instinctively micro strafe during fights. Over time, it'll become second nature to you and you'll be like a phantom on the battlefield, never in the same place for more than an instant. Of course, micro movements alone won't make you untouchable. You also need to balance them with precise aim to effectively win duels. That's where our next tip comes in, using smart positioning and peeking patterns to line up the perfect shot while staying elusive. While it's crucial to master a variety of peeking techniques, it's equally important to know how to combine them with precise aiming to maximize your effectiveness in engagements. This is where the concept of the T-rule comes into play. The T-rule is all about creating a perpendicular angle between your movement path and your enemy's line of sight when you peek. By moving in a T-shape relative to your opponent's line of sight, you'll appear to be moving much faster from their perspective, making you a harder target to hit. Think about it this way. If you peek by moving directly towards or away from your enemy, like in a straight line, there's minimal lateral movement from their point of view. This makes it easier for them to track your head and land a shot. However, if you strafe out perpendicular to the angle that they're holding, your character model will cross their screen much more rapidly. This forces them to make a larger flick to adjust their aim, which buys you precious milliseconds to line up your own shot. To execute a proper T-rule peek, you'll want to use your A and D keys to strafe out from cover, rather than using W or combining W and your A and D keys to peek out in a straight or diagonal line. As you exit cover, quickly tap the opposite strafe key to counter strafe and stop your momentum. Counter strafing will also help you control the distance of your peeks much more precisely. The goal is to minimize the time you spend exposed in the open while maximizing the ground you can cover with each peek. By combining crisp counter strafing with the right peek, you'll be able to swing out, take your shot, and slip back into cover before your enemy can even react. Let's break down an example of using the T rule in action. Imagine you're playing on Haven and you're trying to peek into C long from the cubby near C site. If you wide swing out using W, you'll be moving directly into the line of sight of an opponent holding the angle. Instead, try jiggle peeking just far enough to bait out a shot, and once you have the info that your opponent is holding that angle, you can use the T rule to peek out and pre-fire them. To do this, strafe out a bit further than you did when you jiggle peeked, and as you reach the point where you want to take your shot, tap the opposite direction key before firing. You'll have the peeker's advantage here, and the perpendicular movement from your T-shaped peek will make you tough to hit even if your opponent is ready for you. When you combine the T rule with disciplined crosshair placement, you'll win duels before your enemies can even react. Mastering the art of peeking is essential for both aggressive entries and defensive holding. While jiggle peeking, jump peeking, and shoulder peeking all have their own place, the T rule should be your bread and butter for taking aim duels. Practice it in death matches until it becomes muscle memory to you. Focus on making crisp counter strafes and keeping your crosshair at head level as you peek. But remember, winning aim duels is only half the battle. Just as important is knowing how to safely navigate the map and approach key areas like sites with optimal movement. Now that you've got a solid grasp on micro movements and the T rule, let's talk about how you can take your macro movement to the next level by combining it with information from util usage. The key here is to use the intel you gain from your team's abilities and the enemy's ability cues to predict where opponents are likely to be positioned and adjusting your movement accordingly. For example, let's say you're attacking A side on bind and your Silva lands a recon bolt that reveals an enemy playing close right cubby. With this information, you can focus on clearing the left side of the site first, knowing that you're less likely to get caught off guard from the right. You might even pre-aim or pre-fire cubby as you entry, expecting an enemy to be posted up there. Similarly, pay attention to cues like Cypher camera placement, Killjoy turret locations, and Sage wall positioning to infer which angles the defenders are likely holding. If you're entering A on ascent and notice Killjoy's turret holding A main, you can assume she has Molly set up at the door to stop your team's push. Communicate this info to your team and focus on breaking the util first or moving out of its way before peeking out. Another crucial aspect of macro movement is learning to scale with your team and timing your entries based on your teammates' util usage. Too often, duelists will get overeager and rush onto the site before their team is in a position to trade kills. Instead, wait for your initiator to use their intel gathering abilities before pushing up. Let your controller smoke off key angles before swinging wide, and always try to peek with a teammate to trade kills and maintain a man advantage. On defense, use your own utility to dictate the attacker's movement and create opportunities for easy kills. If you're playing Viper on Icebox, for example, you might throw a one-way smoke at B yellow to bait attackers into pushing through before mowing them down with your Phantom. Or if you're Cypher on Ascent, you could place a tripwire at B main to get an earlier alert of the attacker's push, then set up a crossfire with the teammate playing in market. The key is to always be thinking one step ahead and using the information you have to predict your opponent's movements. If you can anticipate where the enemy is likely to be and coordinate your util usage with your team, you can create favorable engagements and catch opponents off guard solely based on movement and timing. By combining crisp mechanics with intelligent macro movement and util usage, you'll be able to outplay opponents and carry your team to victory. Remember, Valorant is a game of inches where every small advantage counts. By mastering the fundamentals of movement and learning to adapt your pathing based on the info you gather, you'll develop the skills to compete at the highest levels. Alright, so now that we've covered the key aspects of movement in Valorant, it's time to put it all together into a practice routine that you can start implementing today. Remember, the goal is to make these techniques second nature, so consistency is key. First, hop into the range and spend 10 to 15 minutes drilling your counter strafing and micro adjustments, focused on making crisp, precise movements and keeping your crosshair at head level. Then, jump into deathmatch and consciously work on incorporating this micro movement into every duel. The goal isn't to win the deathmatch game, but rather to get multiple high quality duels. So use a T-roll whenever possible to give yourself the peeker's advantage. And as you play ranked, pay attention to the intel you gather from your team's util and the enemy's ability cues. Use that information to predict where opponents are likely to be and adjust your pathing accordingly. Communicate with your team and focus on scaling together and trading kills. To take your practice to the next level, review your VODs and identify any mistakes in your positioning or util usage. Are you peeking too wide, not using cover effectively? Are you failing to capitalize on opportunities created by your team's util? Make a conscious effort to correct those mistakes in your next session. Remember, implementing these techniques will feel awkward at first, and you will whiff shots because of it. That's totally normal. But over time, as you build muscle memory, you'll see a massive improvement in your movement and overall gameplay. So stay disciplined, stay focused, and keep on grinding. If you want to dive even deeper into the nuances of movement in Valorant, I made a 46-minute video that covers every Valorant mechanic. I also made a free mechanics guide you can download, which you can find in the description below. Thanks for watching.